Let's just grab a seat. Let's kind of settle in. Let's get reacquainted with each other. So, hey, it's nice seeing you guys again. It's been a while. Last time I was crying. This time I am not. The time before that, I was in a kitchen, and now I'm not. So, this is fun. I wanted to do something different today, and I was kind of inspired by my workplace. So, obviously, we are all quarantined, and we're all bored out of our minds. So, we're either picking up alcohol, or books, or eating, or all the above. And guess what? None of that is bad. So typically I am a cookbook reader. So I am not one to really like read a lot of books. I have a lot of books. I love Pride and Prejudice. I have my go-to books. But I don't typically listen to audiobooks. They bore me. And I also don't really like stray from cookbooks nowadays. But the workplace gave me a type of challenge to read something out of my comfort zone. So at first I started reading Stephen King's 11/22/63, which I'm still reading, but I bought the book, so now I'm kind of like I'm slowing down with it. It's also a 30-hour read, so it was like I needed a breather. So I was like, what is something in the meantime that I can read that is still going to connect with what my workplace has me doing? And I typically don't listen to Harry Potter, so they wanted us to read something out of our comfort zone again. So I was like, like what is something out of my comfort zone? Like, audiobooks are out of my comfort zone, so let's do that. So I looked up available audiobooks, and the first thing to pop up was Harry Potter. And I like the nostalgia that came back. I was just like, wow, like I remember sitting on the floor having my dad read these books to me, and how amazing, like, because at that moment my family was connected. Now we're a little bit more distant, we're all like disconnected at this point, but the moment that we would read Harry Potter at night, we were connected, we were together, like that was family time. And honestly, I didn't quite remember the books as an adult, and I said, like, let me listen to this audiobook. So I started listening, and I'm 6 chapters in. So here's just a couple things that I thought would be fun to, I guess, like things that I didn't realize, like as a kid, that I realize now as an adult. So I realized in the beginning of the book, Vernon Dursley is not as like mean as he seemed to be in like the movie. Like he actually had like a soft spot. Like he wasn't quite sure what's going on. He wanted to talk to his wife, but he was like this is important, but like I'm not really quite sure what's going on. Where like in the movie it just seems like he hates Harry like the whole time. And I kind of forgot that like Vernon did kind of care a little bit, like, oh, like what was Harry's name? What was his nephew's name? Like what was going on with the Potters? Like what did Petunia talk to her sister lately? Like what was going on? And he was scared to make his wife upset. So like he was more scared of his wife than finding out that if they were okay. So that was like a little bit of like like it kind of like humanized him a little bit. Like in my mind, like when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, like that kind of like humanizes him. Like he did care, but his wife's hatred is just like so over and above. Also, I realized that Dudley is like a grown 2-year-old. Like I didn't realize like how childish. Like he's in an 11-year-old body, like basically by the second chapter, and how he's basically like a 2-year-old. Like he's an 11-year-old body and he's a 2-year-old. He's acting like a 2-year-old. Like he gets everything he wants. And obviously they did portray that in the movie pretty well, but I just felt like he was more like I don't want that. And instead like he threw full on temper tantrums like a 3-year-old, which I was like in the book. So I didn't quite realize that either. Another thing I thought it was really interesting that in the movie, in the movies, just as a series, and if you haven't watched them, like, you don't have to listen to me. If you haven't read the books, I'm not spoiling everything, but I didn't realize that in the movies, they kept Harry in the cupboard under the stairs until the second movie. And then the second movie, he was in the upstairs bedroom, where in the book, in the Sorcerer's Stone, the first book, he was, after he started getting letters being addressed to him being in the cupboard, they then put him in Dudley's second room before even like the swarm of letters came to him, which I was like, oh, that was crazy. It's just like a lot of things that like I didn't even think about, um and my heart really went out to Harry because, you know, his entire life he wasn't allowed to ask questions, he wasn't allowed to do anything, he wasn't allowed to like be curious about anything, he wasn't allowed to be himself. Like, he didn't even know who he was. He made like little bits of mistakes, like he tried to jump over some trash cans, he ended up on a chimney. Like, those were magical things that were happening to him at that moment, but like this poor kid just couldn't even live without being thrown into a cupboard for being bad, for like being like for messing up, and he didn't even know. So obviously when the letters kept coming, and there's obviously more that happened, but when the letters kept coming and Harry wanted to read the letters because he's like, this is the first letter I've ever gotten in my whole entire life and almost my 11 years. Obviously Vernon was like, that's it, we're going, like, far away, I'm over it. Then at the hotel, like hundreds of letters came for him for whatever room that they were staying at. So then that's when they go to that island, and it was supposed to be storming that night. So Harry's watching, you know, Harry's on the floor, Dudley's on the couch, and obviously he's watching the time tick down, and that's when Hagrid comes in, and you know, so like in the movie they didn't quite emphasize like how little Harry knew. In the book they really made it known, like they really like drove it home that he had no idea, like he had no clue that there was even a wizarding world out there, like where, and he was like questioning it, he was questioning himself, where like in the movie he kind of asked a couple questions and it was kind of like, oh yeah, I understand, like wow, like yeah, okay, cool, like yeah, oh boy Wonderman, he's kind of like looking around, but like they really drove that home in the book, and that was like so cool to hear, like where he's like, wait, like what, like no, like my parents died in a car crash, and then it's like, and obviously Hagrid is just, what do you mean, no, Lily and James, that's an insult, like he was just like so great. I also didn't realize that the whole shopping trip that they took was A, on Harry's birthday, and B, it took them the whole day, and Harry met Draco Malfoy when he was getting his robes fitted for his first year, and I did not realize that, and I was like, oh, because in the movie he meets him at the top of the stairs in the school, where in the book he meets him in the totally forgot, but he meets him in the school, meets him when getting fitted for his robes, and it all took like one day. I also found it really odd. In the movie, they've made a huge emphasis on him getting his wand, which is a ginormous part of the Harry Potter series, is Harry's wand and the connection of the wand. And for those that didn't read the book, I'm not going to tell you. But for those that know what I'm talking about, they made that connection with the wand, and you're like, oh snap. But then in the book, they blew right over it. Or J.K. Rowling blew right over it. And I was like, where's the part where he gets his wand? And it's like, holy crap, like this is important. Like, whatever. But obviously he goes to platform 9, and he actually has to go back to the Dursleys. I did not even remember that part either. He has to go back to the Dursleys, live with them for a month, then they basically drop him off at the train station and just like leave him there as an 11-year-old boy. And they're like, okay, find platform 9 3/4, you silly little goose. And they leave, and they're laughing at him, they're mocking him. Thankfully Mrs. Weasley was there, because she is a saint and we all love her. So yeah, but still, like, you're just like, what the heck? But I'm only on chapter 6, and I really want to do this. I really want to do another video because there's just so many things that, like, I did not even realize in the Harry Potter series, and I just, like, love the Harry Potter series. Like, just friendship, family, coming together, a boy finding out who he really is and what he really is and what he can do with the knowledge that he's given is just crazy. Like, it's not even about witchcraft and wizardry at that point. It is about, like, a boy's journey through life, and it just has magical components to it. So I'm totally about it. I love it. I love the whole series, but there's just, like a lot of things in the books I didn't even. How did I totally forget? I mean, I was like a 6-year-old kid listening to these books, but yeah. So right now they're on the train. Him and Ron met. Ron's a little like, oh, you're really Harry? Let me see. You know, Harry does the whole hair thing, and at this moment where I literally stopped it tonight was where the snack cart lady came, and she was like, oh, do you guys want anything from the trolley? And, you know, Ron obviously can't afford it. You know, he wears hand-me-downs, and, you know, they've always been very poor. So Harry's like, oh, well, this is, like, the first kid that's ever talked to me, and, like, he's talking to me about his family and talking to me about my life, and not even just because I'm Harry Potter, but just because, like we're just talking, and obviously he knows. Ron did act more starstruck in the book than he did in the movie, but they're kids, so he's just acting awkward about it. But still, Harry is like, oh, I want to buy this kid food. Like, let's eat, because I'm hungry, so he must be hungry. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Sorry, it's like a 12-minute video, but still, like, it's bedtime. I figured, like, I like reading, and I thought that this is like an interesting alternative to cooking. So let me know what you think. If I'm wrong, you can totally let me know, and put some interesting facts about, like, maybe like the first 6 chapters that you have found that maybe like you didn't know before. And obviously I'm just getting started reading, so if you're like, oh hey, I want to read Harry Potter again, totally join me. I mean, I'll probably be done by today's Friday the 14th. I'll probably be done by like Monday or Tuesday. So, like, totally pick up the book. Let's get reading. But I hope everyone has a good night, and